morning. It's so nice to get started. Nobody on the wall for me to make mad. And that's the best part of the job. Y'all do understand that I don't think we ought to pass 1,000 bills every year, even though y'all came up with 790. Am I on?
Mm-hmm.
Hello?
Should be on.
I am on.
Yeah.
Hello? Okay. We can introduce a lot of bills, apparently. We did 790 something last year. We passed 120, I have to ask Jay because he's the one that ran it over the top, 125 or 6. I want to encourage each of you to remember that we're probably in a funny time. And I've already heard from several of our members that told me that if they didn't get their bill passed, they wouldn't get reelected. I told them bye. I think we should be a little bit more inquisitive as to what the bills do and what the outcomes of those bills will be. And I expect you to do your homework. The due diligence part of this is the nice part of this committee is to get it on the floor, you got to come through here. And it don't matter if it's a governor's bill or your bill or God knows a Senate bill. But I expect you to be tough when they come standing. I got a Democrat standing over there ready to go. That's amazing. Hey, Mary Margaret. Y'all bow with me and let's get started. Gracious Heavenly Father, God of all, maker of all things, thank you for the continued blessings that you give us individually and corporately. Give us some sense so that we do things that are right, not only in your eyes, but in the eyes of the people of the state of Georgia. Give us wisdom. Give us compassion. And Lord, make sure we have some character involved in that. Keep your hand on us. Lead us and guide us. And I say thank you in the name of the Prince of Love. Amen. We have a couple of new members. I guess we can start. Wendell is here. Uh, first on the wall, Ms. Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring for the committee's consideration House Bill 630, which is brought on behalf of our probate judges in every one of our 159 counties. The Probate Council has updated its statute in relation to raising the bond, which is agreeable to the county commissioners, the series of how vacancies are filled, and composition of their training council, eliminating some other antique language. And they've worked on this very hard for a couple of years.
Any questions of Ms. Yes, hold on a second. Mr. Coomer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Oliver, who hires the associate judge or associate judges of the probate court?
The probate judge does, sir.
So if you take the language at lines 277 through 287, this would allow a sitting judge to essentially appoint his or her own successor. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, and that, in fact, happened recently in the metropolitan area.
And is that allowed in any other elected office in Georgia that you're aware of, where the sitting elected officer gets to appoint their successor?
I'm not aware, sir. I was thinking about the magistrate court, but I can't be certain, and I'm not aware.
Okay, and just so I understand, just so I'm clear, the proposed language you have here would, in fact, allow a sitting probate judge to pick his or her successor in office when they decide to leave.
And I believe that's the current law, sir. I don't believe we're changing that. What we're doing is eliminating some chief judge of a traffic court that was statutorily in line. I believe what the probate council did on this particular issue was not change the law.
Well, that does not comport with what's at lines 266 to 273. In fact, that shows that the current law does allow for a succession by another method, including and ultimately, if all of their methods fail, then by appointment by the Superior Court judge. But before you get to that part, you'd have a city or state court judge who would fill in, and if they can't do it, then the clerk of Superior Court would fill in, and if they can't do it, then the chief judge of the Superior Court of the county would pick a successor. But there's no provision under the current law that you have listed here that allows the sitting probate judge to appoint his or her successor as you provided in the new language. Is that, am I misreading that?
I'm not 100% sure. The council was very clear to the committee that they were not changing the law and that the use of state court judge appointments was something that had not happened and had been removed in some other mechanism. But I do believe you're right that under the current law, with this may not change, I don't believe it changes, the probate judge may appoint his or her successor, who then has to run for office at the next general election.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Fleming. Wait a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, if I may, Mr. Whip, on page 10, line 328 of the bill, that's part of the bill which was struck, and I believe that is the language which Ms. Oliver might have been referring to, which did allow for the chief clerk to succeed the probate judge. And I think when she said it's in current law, that's where we struck it and just reorganized it and put it in another place. As I recall, when this came through the Judiciary Committee, the succession process for the probate judge was in about 3 or 4 different places in the code, and it was kind of confusing. I actually had this problem in my county. My probate judge died about 7 years ago. Me and my chief Superior Court judge literally sat in my law library for about 3 hours trying to figure out who the next judge was. And at one point, there's a place where you had a city judge taking over or a state court judge. My county had neither. And we finally concluded that the chief judge should appoint somebody, and we just luckily nobody sued us over it because it wasn't clear. So the purpose of this was not to change the current law necessarily, but to organize it better. And we did have the very discussion that you mentioned in the Judiciary Committee, and it went on for a long time, about whether or not we should change the policy of the current law, which is just what you said. If a probate judge wants to be nefarious, they can appoint a chief judge or a chief clerk and then resign after they get elected. The thing we did do is that we made them run at the next general election. So they can't have a 4-year term, only a 2-year term. But your question is fair, but it is current law as I understand it.
Mr. Willard.
Thank you. Let me add this a little bit. Only in the last few years have we had the position known of an associate probate judge. Right. Prior to, I think about 3 years ago, we did not even have a associate probate judge. We only had a probate judge. And that's why you had what we call the current law at line 328, only recognizes the succession by what would be the chief clerk of the court if that person held the qualifications to be probate judge. So with the creation of the position of the associate probate judge in those counties where they desire to have that position filled, we felt it would be appropriate to have that individual now be the successor to the probate judge upon retirement or death.
And I'll only add, Mr. Whip, that we know that the probate judges serve in very different capacities across our state, and the associate judges are used in the more metropolitan, larger population counties, and many of the probate judges do not have a clerk or an associate, and therefore the final line of appointment is from the Superior Court judge who presides over that county. And your amendment was added, Mr. Coomer, on line 177 at your request.
Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I come before you today asking for House Bill 661, LC 430769S. Recall last year we passed a bill that created a more efficient and transparent method for filing State Department of Revenue tax liens. That bill did create statewide attachment for liens with a new 10-year certain life without being able to renew. It required clearance letters for deed transfers, which has proven to be complicated and unpragmatic. This bill simply reverts back to the county-specific liens while keeping efficiencies and transparency for the citizens as well as the department. It comes with the full cooperation of the Georgia Superior Court Clerks Cooperative Authority, the mortgage banking industry, real estate closing attorneys, and also the department. Ask for favorable consideration.
Any questions? Okay. This will be a calendar for Monday. Under structured rule HB 661. Any discussion? All in favor signify by aye. We don't need to have more than one. That's it.